All right, Chris Popper here in Bangor, and I'm joined by Kate Meyer, Casey Rush, Becky Leeman, and Jenn Crandall from MDI High School. And this is our continuation from the video from yesterday about positive things that are happening with education, especially, well, here on the island. And we again want to acknowledge the fact that for some, the pandemic has just been thrown people's lives upside down. It's been very difficult for teachers, for students, for parents, and we all recognize that. But if we focus on the negative too much, we'll all have black clouds around our heads. So we do want to kind of highlight the positive. And we'll start with Kate because this week, even though it's vacation, is
It is Love Teaching Week. It's which is it's actually a nationwide grassroots movement that was started by educators in 2015. And so this is traditionally the week, even though Maine is traditionally on vacation this week, and our students are playing basketball. But there is a great social media campaign happening under the hashtag Love Teaching with the organization Love Teaching 21 on Twitter. So, just thinking about everything that our students and our families and our teachers are going through, looking for those little sparks of light to find, a little bit of positivity in all of the darkness is like you said, Chris, so incredibly needed and healthy for us to be doing. And, as I would wander the halls, in between classes and get a chance to check in with colleagues or students, I was realizing that there are positive things happening in our buildings. And so thank you for taking the time and allowing us to highlight some of those things that are happening.
Well, it's so important. Becky, let's talk with you first and kind of tell us about what you have done, how you're using technology, and some of the highlights of English at MDI High School.
Well, I would say that one of my characteristics is that I am a pragmatic optimist. And so, one of the things about, yes, online school is not ideal, whether you're hybrid or whether you're 100% remote, as we've been at different times, but we don't have a choice. Otherwise kids would not be getting any kind of an education. And so, the first step that I want to just say is it's pretty amazing to have this, because if this were happening in 1950, what would we be doing? I can't even imagine.
Right.
So, that's sort of my first step in that. But second of all, I think Kate and I worked last summer to plan our teaching for juniors for American Lit. And one of the things that we really focused on was really trying to be very clear and very deliberate and straightforward, that big projects tend to be really difficult for kids at this point in time and for teachers. And so we tried to chop things into smaller pieces and be really clear about the practice that we were going through. And working with standards-based education, that's kind of the underlying goal. But as a teacher who's, I've been a teacher for 34 years, something like that. And this really was an incentive to mix things up and to try new things. And again, we were very lucky with a lot of the support and a lot of the technological encouragement and options that we got. Kate and I both used some voice commenting technology, so that when at the end of a paper, a kid would get a comment from me or from Kate, saying, hey, these are the things we'd like you to work on, et cetera, et cetera. I used Flipgrid, which is a video format, a video platform where kids can make videos of themselves reading something or themselves talking about something. And then other students, they can either be private and only I see them, or kids can comment on each other's work. And that's been something I've done. So really the challenge was trying to bring in the personal aspect of the classroom. And it's been a great reminder because not all parents have the opportunity to stop in when we have parent conferences, or 3 o'clock in the afternoon when I am available to talk on the phone. They're not available. And so this way, I've been using videos for my 9th graders now that I'm teaching 9th grade second semester. And I've been trying to post a weekly update video on my webpage for parents to see. And I've gotten a couple emails saying that's so helpful for me to be able to see that and to understand what's going on in the class. So I would say that as somebody who was a pretty passionate teacher anyway, this has been a real kick in the pants to me to look at what I'm doing, think about whether it's working, talk to the kids, and try to be really humane and responsive in the way that I teach. And, it's great to have that reminder. And there are definitely times where, the kids are going, "You're frozen. I can't hear you," But in general, I feel like just being a little kinder and gentler for everybody has been really the secret that I have relearned.
Let me just throw this question out there. I mean, obviously, you hear the Danes barking. I mean, that wouldn't happen in school because MDI High School is a pet-free environment. But
Right.
I mean, so how do you cope with dogs barking, cats walking across the computer?
Yeah.
Is it a distraction? Do you just move on? And then the other thing is you also have, I guess, kids that are able to, MDI High School starting later this year.
Yeah.
And maybe kids are doing things. Yeah, they're coming to class, but maybe they're doing more outside of normal class times. How do you deal with that? And what are your comments on that?
I would just say quickly that I have, again, there are days where if we had the same conversation, I would be like, oh my gosh, it's just not working. But for example, at the end of my American Lit class, we had presentations of students' podcasts that they had made. And one of my students had to go to Texas for a family funeral. And he joined the class from the lobby of the airport.
How, get check marks for, you get brownie points for that, right?
It was fantastic, and he wanted to be there, and his friends were very, the kids in the class were very, very solicitous of him, but he wanted to be there and he could be there. Whereas otherwise, if he'd said that, I would have been like, oh, what do we have to do? How could we make that happen? And here it was fantastic. The other thing is some of it has been, I think, that fact that things don't work smoothly. But for example, I had pet day as my first day for freshman English, and I warned the kids, I said, we're going to have pet day. If you've got a pet, everybody will have their cameras on, show us your pet. And so we met everybody's pet. And if they didn't have a pet, they could show a plant,
I should have told Elmer and Pebbles. They may be making appearances because there's Pebbles. I mean, how great is that? That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think sometimes just it's a reminder not to sweat the small stuff, like, oops, I thought I had linked this, but I hadn't, so that can be really important because the students see us either sweating it or not sweating it at the same time. And I think in this kind of situation, yeah, the grownups are still coping. Everything's not working perfectly. My dog is barking in the background, but we're going to get through it. And I think that that's an important message as well.
And I think, Casey and Jen, please jump in. But I mean, that's life too. I mean, that's the other thing is life just doesn't go the way we planned it. And boy, haven't we learned that in the last year and a half, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, to be able to know that, and as I said this yesterday, this is Survivor. It's adapt, outwit, and be as flexible and we're all master contortionists by now,
Mhm.
because of everything that we've had to adapt to. Casey, tell us about what you're doing in the theater department, and obviously that's all changed because, I mean, you've been under the thumb of the governor, and with the rules trying to keep everyone safe, and how that's all happening.
Right. I think Becky described herself as a pragmatic optimist. Is that what you
Mhm.
said? And I'm not that. I'm an optimistic pragmatist. I mean, that's just me. But when we looked at, of course, we talked back in September about our fall musical production, and which is still in production because now it's to the point where they're putting the film piece together. And we're hoping to premiere that in spring. I mean, I think it will be done before then. But we even had a crazy idea. I think I mentioned to you about doing it sort of like a drive-in movie theater
Yes.
Oh,
experience,
cool.
kind of the way graduation was done. Maybe people could be in their cars, and but that's great. That was, we really had limitations in the fall that have been eased a touch in the spring now, or winter, still winter. And in the one act, we actually started talking about it in December. We didn't start with it in December, um, other than a couple of meetings and getting together online to read through the script a couple times. And then, of course, we weren't together for 2 weeks after Christmas break. We had the
Right.
2 week sort of forced remote learning session, and everything was put on lockdown. So we've only been working on the one act for about 3 weeks now, but I have a really solid group of kids, as I think everybody knows. All the hammer fell March the 13th last year, and we had just qualified to go to states. So we were gearing up for that. Jazz was getting ready for states that weekend. Show choir was doing the same, and of course, sports at that point are, I guess, done. I mean, right,
Getting ready
because
for
they
spring,
finished
right?
over the
Right.
break. Yeah. So it's basically the arts in March. And so that was pretty tough. I mean, everybody understood it. There were tears and there was
Yeah.
frustration, but everybody understood the bigger picture. Um, and so being able to get together now, 80% of our rehearsals have been online virtual, which has been a completely different experience. Um, in the last few years, we've had a handful of virtual rehearsals. I came down with the flu a couple of years ago, and I had to run a couple of rehearsals from my bed, which was a fun experience, and then snow day rehearsals. But so it's live and learn, right? And a couple face-to-face rehearsals on Saturday morning. I think I saw you passing through last Saturday for a
Right.
basketball game
Basketball, yeah.
when we were getting ready to rehearse. It's been a great experience. I mean, I was just talking with, well, I don't recall now, but I was talking to someone recently about, kind of what is the point of co-curricular, extracurricular activities? And we can say, well, yeah, it's those plaques on the wall, the trophies in the case, it's moving on to states, and all of that. And of course, that's nice. I mean, who doesn't want that? But it's really about resiliency and teamwork. And for me, theater, as much as anything else, is taking on a challenge. You have these black words on a white page, and you have to turn that into something dynamic. And it is a great challenge. And whether it's an easy play or a challenging play, whatever you want to call it, um, it's always a challenge. And to bring that group of people together, um, into what is a few years ago. I remember, Chris, you did this. In fact, it was in 2017, and we won the state championship. And you referred to the one act team, and I didn't tell you at the time, but it flew all over me. I was like, "What? We're not a team. We're not basketball, or whatever." But then the more I thought of it, I realized we are. That's exactly what we are. It is a team, just as a classroom full of kids at its best, is a team when you actually do work together as individuals toward that common purpose. And I think we don't necessarily see, sometimes we see that in the classroom, I think we maybe more often see it on a basketball court or a theater stage. But certainly, the circumstance we found ourselves in of late has really, I don't know, forced is the right word, empowered teachers to really see what we do and the groups within which we work as teams. And how do we do the best to help that group work together? I was very afraid with my freshmen this fall when we started with remote learning, and then we came to school with the helter-skelter kind of half-day green and white and all of that. And to see how well the kids responded to that, and to see how even odd little bonds formed. My block B and block C kids were all kind of quiet, and it was morning and right after lunch and kind of weird, but then my block D kids, it was just the coolest thing, because these two little green and white cohort groups formed, and they really were kind of close, and they were funny. And I would have my camera on at the beginning of class and with the kids at home, and the kids would be just carrying on these just funny conversations at the beginning of class. And the kids at home were like, wow, it sounds like they're really having a good time, And it was nice, because I think we get used to that. And it isn't always that way. That if anything, we've lost some of that, but in some ways we've gained it. It's such an odd experience. It's not necessarily one I want to repeat in 2021, 22.
Right.
But at least we have the tools, I think, to do it if we have to.
I think the one thing that everyone has learned is never ever to take the little things for granted. I mean, when you sit there and go, for one act, and you're, in your 27th day of rehearsals, and you're going, oh my God, we're going to have another rehearsal tomorrow. I
Yeah.
mean, it's like, woo, we're having a rehearsal. I mean, that's where we are. And,
Right.
I always joke that the first or second week of February was always basketball purgatory for me, because it was like I was so far into basketball, I couldn't see the end of it. But then, this year it's like, oh my God, I'd kill to be,
Yeah.
having as many basketball games as we used to. So it's, I think everyone is, that's the biggest lesson I think people are getting is, don't take people for granted, because you may not see people and you may not be surrounded by people. And those little things that, we've always taken for granted, you just can't, because who knows what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Jen, tell us first what you teach. I mean, as family and consumer science, what is that? I mean, to the uneducated, what is that?
Well, you would probably know it as home economics.
Okay.
And so right now I'm teaching fabrics and clothing construction, and in the fall I taught food and nutrition and a class called Farm to Table.
How do you do that remotely? I mean,
well, let me tell you, I am so grateful. Our administration recognized immediately that was not going to work to try to do these things remotely. So with their flexibility and the flexible schedule that we've had, and the when all my colleagues are planning and in meetings on Wednesdays, I actually have students in person. They've made the groups smaller, and instead of having to do, some in person while some are online, I have none online. I only have these small groups in person sort of all week. And, it's been a lot of work, but it's been great. It's been so great to have the kids in person, and making things and feeling like they're connected, they're in the building. That those little, because they're smaller groups, they really get to know each other, and I get to know them really well. And we all sort of feel this camaraderie because, again, we're surviving this thing. And we've had to do some things differently. In the past, the students could eat their creations right there in class, share them with each other, share them with friends. And this year we, had packaged them up and they took them home, and or sometimes they'd go outside and eat them. We amped up the safety and cleanliness protocols, and so we just sort of made it work. But it's been really so nice. And I'll never forget when we first started the school year and everybody was remote, except for those of us who do hands-on. We would have the students just on the Wednesdays at the very first few weeks of school. So many teachers came into my room and said, "Are those students?" Oh.
You had so many helpers, right? Just because teachers wanted to be around students.
Exactly. They would hear their voices or they'd hear me and they'd come in and, oh my gosh, they were just so thrilled. And I kept telling the kids, you have never been so welcomed and so appreciated. It was really great.
I mean, let's acknowledge the fact that teachers don't become teachers because they hate kids.
Right.
Exactly. Exactly.
That comes with age and years. But I mean, you don't start.
Thanks, Chris.
Start with that as a premise.
That's right. It's so true. And to finally get the kids back in the building, or after that 2-week break after Christmas when we were remote, it was such a joy. I know Wendy mentioned yesterday that they tried to do a little welcome, snacks and things like that. People uniformly were just celebrating having the students back in there.
Right.
It felt like a morgue beforehand, it was not the same.
Well, and I had talked to Matt Haney. I think we had done something, and he was saying how quiet the school was. And schools are, outside of the library, I mean, schools aren't supposed to be quiet.
Right. Yeah.
A healthy school has noise.
Right.
Because, I mean, that's how education is designed.
Yeah. It's true. We just couldn't wait to get them back. And again, I have a shout out to the administration for being willing to experiment, try things out. This Wednesday thing where we have these 2-hour chunks where students can come in. The amount of organization that took just to get buses, because we said, absolutely, we will provide busing for those who need it. The number of people involved in that endeavor was tremendous.
Oh, transportation supervision it's taken on a whole new, level. The transportation supervisor is now the most revered person in the school, just trying to get kids in, get kids out, make sure the bus is sanitized, make sure there are enough drivers. I mean, it's tough.
It is. And the unsung heroes of all of this, the custodial staff, the busing, the people in the offices, making it all work.
Kitchen staff.
Kitchen staff, yes, providing these meals.
To deliver food. And that was always, when everything went remote back in March last year, that was the first thing that came to my mind is there are so many kids that rely on breakfast and lunch, and if they're not in school, how are they going to eat? And shout outs to all the schools that have delivered food or made them either available for pickup and bulk pickup or bulk delivery to make sure that kids are fed, and that just doesn't, and it's all free this year, which is even better.
Yep. We might not have the big tourneys and the carload parade going off to celebrate championships, but that same energy has rallied around trying to make this as normal as possible for students, and as just make it possible, So it's been great. We're so fortunate in this community.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I'm hoping that the island does is we get through the summer, and sometime in fall when all the tourists are gone, we have just a big celebration, like woohoo, we survived. And
Yeah.
maybe we don't have fireworks on the 4th of July, but we have fireworks on Halloween or the middle of November. And it's like, you know what? We need to all breathe. We all need to, celebrate the fact that we have survived this pandemic. And, I'd love to see something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it. There's been so many missed celebrations, in this last year. So I think that sounds lovely.
Yeah, all those birthday parties that didn't happen. Let's just, there's fireworks are for everyone that's had a birthday.
Right.
Or, whatever we do, all those anniversaries and everything, the celebrations that have been self-contained for the safety of everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Let's it's let your hair down, celebrate responsibly, of course.
Right.
But I mean, right? But that's really, I think, what we all need. I mean, at some point. All right, let's go around and see what I've missed, and then we can post this. Kate, any parting comments?
No, just like I said yesterday, I mean, I've been really thinking about my students this week, and how resilient they've been, and again, how kind they have been with each other and with their teachers, with me, the grace that they have extended and experienced themselves. I'm just so proud of our students, and just so happy to be able to take the time to just pause for a minute and reflect and find those little sparks.
Yeah.
All right, Becky, anything?
I think just to echo what Kate said too, I think that, we talk about the learning gaps, and people are worried about that. But I think, I've been emphasizing to myself and my colleagues and my students, they're learning things that will transform the world. I think the kindness, the ability to suck it up and deal with a tough situation. To have our seniors last year, to lose something that they had been working for and to have to regroup and redefine what their values were. Those are lifelong skills that many of us didn't develop some until 2020, and so I think it's really important to acknowledge the struggles and the difficulties, but also to try to take that time to really celebrate what the kids and the teachers and the community, when it pulls together, has been able to come out of this. So I really appreciate your willingness to do this. And Kate, what a great idea. So thank you for this opportunity.
Casey?
The one thing I think I've seen so poignantly last semester, and we're early in this semester yet, but I have a confidence that I'm going to see it again. With all the changes in curriculum and, having to do what we can do and do best in the time that we have, I was really concerned, especially teaching freshmen, about how much they will learn and how they will develop their skills. And I was so thrilled to see that very same thing happen this past semester. That really happens every single semester that I teach freshmen. Yes, things have changed. Is learning happening? Yes. Is growth happening? Absolutely. And I think that's what we really have to keep in mind. Yet again, people jokingly say, well, it's for the children, but it is. That's exactly what it is. It is for them. And I really know that some kids are struggling, but I really think that many kids struggle under the best of circumstances, and the best we can do is to provide them opportunities to learn, to be together, to communicate, to grow the community. as even in the form that it's in, is the best we can do.
All right, Jen?
Well, change is hard, and especially school change, changing a system like a school. And we always try to make it better. And this has really accelerated that. And one of the things I think is so great is our administration said, okay, guys, we've all learned a ton. We've had to change so much. What do we want to keep from this? There's been some positive stuff. So let's look at that. And what do we want to keep going forward? And I just think that's brilliant, and some of those changes, would they have happened otherwise? Probably not, maybe not. But seeing this from that positive lens, I think, is, well, I feel fortunate to work in a school that's always trying to improve things. And I think that the kids also are seeing what's really important to them about school, recognizing what they really miss that's not there, and it just, prioritizing all that positive stuff.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think the class of 2020, the class of 2021, they are going to, I mean, obviously remember their senior year, their junior year. Hopefully they remember the best of what happened as opposed to what they missed.
Right.
And, maybe, as I think we talked about, in graduation planning last year, is that maybe at the 5th year reunion, they actually celebrate their graduation and they do a graduation or something like that. But
Well, Chris, I'll be honest, as the parent of a graduate,
Yeah.
2020 graduate, I could not have imagined a better send off. I mean, you talk about a silk purse out of a sow's ear. Holy mackerel, that graduation week was like none other, and it was great. And I said something to Matt about that the other day, and he just kind of rolled his eyes. He says, "Yeah, I don't know how we're going to top that one."
Well-
I mean, it really, they did. And as a parent, I was so proud of this community and so proud of my school.
And, I mean, and as Becky was saying, some of the things that you're going to take away. I mean, there are some of those traditions, I think, that began last year that are going to carry forward even when we're back to so-called normalcy. I mean, I thought it was a heck of a lot better sitting outside than in 9,000 degree gym. Luckily I always had a seat, but on bleachers or whatever. I mean, but anyway, I hope people do look for the good. There is an awful lot of good. And I think that's, again, why we've done this, is we want to focus on the good as opposed to the negative. But I thank you all. I mean, yes, it's vacation week and you all gave up time for vacation and, to come out here and highlight the good things. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, guys.
Very
Thank
appreciated.
you, Chris.